Hey, welcome back to the show. It's your boy T Rob with the Unapologetic Perspective. Um, Once again, I'd like to say thank you for all of the support that we've been getting on the channel. It's been an overwhelming amount of support, man. With our first two videos, man, we got an overwhelming amount of support on the content, and I want to say thank you for that. I also want to ask that you hit that like button and subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the like button on this video if it brings you, if it brings you any kind of good information, if you learn something from it, if you take something from this, hit the like button. It gets the algorithm out there. And also subscribe, please. We appreciate your subscription to the channel. We're gonna keep trying to put out good content. I think I said it on the last video, I'll say it on this one. I understand that this content is not for everybody. But if you're triggered by anything that I say in the videos that I put out, then this content just may be for you. Because what we do is a deep dive and an examination into the things that trigger us. What we want to do is try to get a clear understanding about who we are so that we can live a more peaceful life out here in the world. I could teach you a number of different things. I've done a number of different things in my life. I've had so many different experiences that I can pretty much speak on most things. But the most important thing that I've learned in my life is that I needed to go within to figure out who I was so that I can find peace in my life. And it's a journey. It's something that you do every day. It's an exercise, just like you go to the gym and you exercise your muscles. You have to exercise your mind state. You have to exercise the things that you put into your mind. That's going to be important, right? Not exercise, but what you put into your mind is going to be important. The content that you consume, the things that you look at, the things you pay attention to are going to determine the outcomes in your life and how you look at the world. So if you consume more content that tells you that the battle is from within, that you have to focus on yourself and become a better you, there's a saying where they say that you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. Michael Jackson had a song called Man in the Mirror. And he basically said in that song that the change has to start with me. So hit that like button, subscribe. We're going to get into this show. This is part 2 on the Unapologetic Perspective, talking about killing your ego and your persona. When I was younger, I realized that one of the most important things to me, and I mean, even as I got older, this is not something that just went away as I got older. The things that influence you when you're young, they tend to stay with you when you become an adult. One of the things that I felt was important to me was that I be seen. And it wasn't necessarily that I be seen by the entire world. It was that I be seen by the people I thought were the most important to me, right? When you're coming up, the most important to you, the people who you consider to be the most important people to you oftentimes are your family and the people who are in your direct circle. So it was important to me that I be seen in a certain light by my family, by the people around me, by my community in a good light. And I strived really hard to be the person that was worthy of being seen in a positive way. Well, what I quickly had to learn in life was that everybody's going to be seen in 2 different ways. Good or bad, depending on what the situation is, the circumstances is, and where you're at in life, you're going to be seen in both lights. Oftentimes, I'm not even just saying oftentimes, most of the time, you don't have control over the way that the world is going to see you. You can put things out there in hopes that you be seen in a certain light, but you ultimately cannot control the way that the rest of the world sees you. People are going to see you through their lens in life, and you're going to have to learn to deal with that, right? Or not. The conundrum is if you do not learn to deal with the way that people possibly see you and respond to you, then you could end up in a poor headspace. So In my journey of trying to become this person that was seen in the good light, I put myself in a bad situation. Mentally, I started to deteriorate. Things started to go downhill for me mentally. It was too much stress on my system trying to live up to everybody else's expectations. And at one point in my life, I almost had a mental breakdown. I can remember when it happened. It was around the time that I'd first gotten custody of my kids. I had just graduated from my school, where I was going to school to get my HVAC contractor's license. The first job that I got into, I was eager to perform at a high level. And the reason I was so eager to perform at a high level was because prior to that, I had no prior work history. I had spent most of my life intermittently working, but most of my life I was just a drug dealer. So I was eager to prove that I was somebody who was worthy of working at this company and who deserved the position. I had minimal skill, which means I was learning everything on the job. You know, I had the motivation, but I felt as if I had something to prove. Well, people are going to often gravitate towards the energy. So the energy I was putting out was one of desperation. And because I was putting out an energy of desperation, people treated me like somebody who was desperate. My managers did, the people I worked with did. You know, the entire environment treated me based on the energy I was putting out. There was one individual at the company who saw beyond that. And I think it was because he has an empathetic heart, and we're still friends to this day. We actually still work together. But he was willing to take me under his wing and teach me to trade and see beyond his ego to help me become and develop the best person that I could be in the HVAC trade. And because of him, I was able to become a great technician, installer. I now have my own company, and I've done some great things. But during that process, I went through a period where at one point I'd locked myself in my room. I didn't have any contact with my kids, and I sat in the room and I contemplated my entire life. And I was going through a crisis, a mental crisis. A big part of that was because I was trying to keep a standard up and an identity up that I could no longer maintain. Shortly after that, I went back to work. And when I went back to work, I was a totally different person. I was now on the opposite side of things, where if anybody said anything to me, I snapped on them. I remember riding down the street one day and actually getting into it with a guy who was walking past, who felt like we couldn't occupy the same street space together, so he was gonna say something to me. I put my truck in park, jumped out of the truck, and I confronted him about it. This was at the point that I realized that something had to change. What I realized was that I could no longer keep up the persona that I had kept up until that point. It was time for me to evolve. The problem was that my evolution was going in a different direction, and I didn't find balance. See, the balance needed to be that I stood my ground whenever I believed something was wrong, or I took personal responsibility whenever I believed that I might have done something wrong, but there was no balance there. So I was having a breakdown internally because I didn't create the proper structures and systems and create the balance that would allow me to operate rightfully within this company and defend myself oftentimes because I felt like I needed the job. And I had to live with that. Once I actually got the skills under my belt, I graduated to another level. I was able to get beyond that point where I felt I needed the company. My attitude changed about things, and I was on to the next lesson that needed to be learned. And I think this happens oftentimes with most of us, right? The persona that we keep up is often one that will put us in a place where we have to question everything that it is that we believe. And once that persona starts to break down, you'll see people have traumatic experiences. They'll tell you things like they almost had a nervous breakdown, or they're going to deep depression. That's the persona breaking down. That's the ego being in conflict with the rest of the world. These are the things that are happening, but most people don't do an internal examination to even understand that that's what's going on. You see, what I learned recently, and I've been doing, like I said, a deep dive where I spend a lot of time alone. Um, I'm learning a lot about myself just in sitting in silence and doing battle with my own thoughts and asking myself where I'm wrong at, where there's some adjustments that need to be made, where I can look at things a little bit differently. I'm starting to realize and listen to some of the content that I listen to, because I listen to a lot of content on building yourself up and becoming the best version of yourself, is that the ego plays a large role in our decision making every day in our life. We don't recognize it or notice it because oftentimes it becomes such a huge part of our life that we identify with it. That's when it becomes the persona, right? So in recent times, we've seen collapse, and I won't say any names because I'm doing battle with the part of me that deals with judgment too, but that'll be a later video. But in recent times, we've seen a lot of celebrities take a hit to their reputation and to their persona based on what we've built them up to be. The characters they are just the thing that we see every day. But now these people are taking a huge hit to their reputations because we built them up in our minds to be something greater than we are. And the thing that happens when we build other people up in our minds to be greater than we are is that we tend to want to tear them down and bring them down to our level. So this is what we're seeing, with some of these larger celebrities, is that they're going through a period where now they were larger than life. They're being brought down to our level, and everybody is celebrating. It feels good. It feels good to bring people down to our level. Oftentimes, if you haven't identified the ego in you, and if they haven't identified their ego, I think the problem is that they also drink the Kool-Aid. They become the persona they create. They become the character that they create, and they feel as if they have to live up to this identity they create. And the minute that they show up as human is when there's a problem. See, we love to look at other people as if they aren't human, if they have some kind of status, money, image, or something to that effect. Now, all of a sudden, they're not human like us because they can't have human problems like we do. Why would they? They're multimillionaires. They're on TV. They got all these things going on for themselves. How could they ever be human like we are, right? It's a problem there. If you really go inside and you start to look within yourself, you'll understand that everybody goes through a conflict. In my travels, in my life, in my experiences, and I've had a great deal of experiences. I've lived a number of places, and I've had relationships with poor people as well as rich people. The number one thing that I've learned across all spectrums, no matter what the circumstances are, is how you look at the world is going to determine how you feel about the world and how you feel internally. I've been around rich people who were worth millions of dollars, who were miserable. And I've been around poor people who had little or nothing, who were happier than ever. The reason for this is they see the world in a certain way. That's the only difference. We want to think that next thing and making it to that next level is going to give us all of the things that we never had, but that's living in the future. If you can bring yourself back to living right here in the present, where you are, right now at this point in your life, maybe think about the things that you feel blessed for today. The things that God has allowed you to have today, like even waking up in the morning to have another opportunity to give it your best, right? If you can consider those things, it should start to change your day-to-day life. Now, there's ways that you can get to this point, exercises that will help you to change your mind state and the way that you look at life. But to look at life in the future as if when you get to a certain area in life, you're going to be happier, I can guarantee you're sadly mistaken. I've been broke and I've been happy, and I've had money and I've been unhappy. The only difference was the way that I looked at the world. Now, at this present point in my life, I'm doing much better than I ever have in life financially. And I'm much better mentally, not because of the money, not because I'm making good money, because I've decided in my head that I will be happy and at peace regardless of my circumstances. I don't live in the future, I live in the now. I deal with my mental state. One of the biggest things that I started doing was questioning all of my thoughts. And I think I talked about this in the last video. Whenever I have a thought come up, whether it's negative, positive, whatever it may be, I put a label on that thought. I don't identify with it. It doesn't become part of my identity. If I feel some kind of pain, I say pain has showed up today. What is pain here for? Why am I feeling pain? If I feel jealousy, I say jealousy has showed up today. Why am I jealous? What's going on there? Even when I feel good thoughts or I feel my ego arise in a situation, like I'm the man, I'm the guy out here, I put a label on that too. And I tell myself, that's my ego showing up. Why do I feel the need to validate myself and act like I'm the man? You know, I can simply just do what it is that I do every day. I don't need to put a label on this thing and make myself into a certain thing to feel good about myself. You see, when you can better identify your thoughts and not make them part of your persona, I think you could better find peace within yourself. Because one of the biggest things that I see people leaning into that is causing them pain is that they care too much about how the world sees them. And this was a problem for me as well. You know, it's one that I've always done battle with, but I'm human. So I do battle with it just like anybody else. I cared about how people saw me. I cared about how the world saw me. I created highlight reels on Instagrams and on Facebook and places like that so people could see the kind of life that I was living, so they can know that I made it out of the circumstances I was in and I was successful. It was a big fuck you to everybody who thought that I wouldn't be at some point. Then I had to realize that I felt no better in my soul about where I was in life based on how other people viewed me. It's an interesting thing when you can watch people who seem to be genuinely themselves, right? We identify with that part of them. And I think we tend to enjoy their art because it says something to a part of us that wants to be genuine, that wants to be whole, right? I say people like Andre 3000. His music is not conventional in the conventional hip hop sense, but for some reason he was able to sell, him and Big Boy were able to sell 10 million albums when they did the Love Below speaker box. I think a large part of that is because Andre 3000 was unapologetically who he was. He never ever made excuses for who he was. He didn't allow people to question him on who he was. He simply just did what it was that he wanted to do. And I think a part of us that wants to be that free identified with that. Another person who I see this in, and you know, he's probably lesser known to some people, is Childish Gambino. He actually has a show on FX, no longer on the air, but he had a show on FX called Atlanta. And in this show, he didn't create judgment based on people's perspectives in the show. He just simply showed a contrast between what some people think versus what other people think from a certain perspective. So he would do things like give the perspective of a white man and then give the perspective of a black woman and see how these two perspectives collided with one another and were at odds with one another. Not saying one was right or one was wrong. He just simply showed the perspective. And I found that to be very interesting take on things, and I enjoyed the show. When he was asked about his art, he just refused to even give any opinion on it or tell people what the ideas was behind what it was that he was creating, because he wanted you to determine for yourself what it is that you were seeing and probably come to your own conclusions based on your own experiences. So I find that interesting. I think that we identify with these kind of people because part of us wants to be free. Part of us wants to be our genuine selves, but we're afraid of what the world will think if we actually became the person that we wanted to be. There's something very freeing about being who you want to be unapologetically, without anybody looking at you sideways or giving a shit about how anybody looks at you when you're doing what it is that you want to do. So one of the things that I started doing was when I would straighten myself up because I felt like the world was looking at me a certain way, I would identify that part of my brain that told me, hey, you need to straighten up because the world is looking at you right now. And I would just do what I naturally would do if nobody was looking. And this is probably an exercise or something that you can do at home if you like to, is stop yourself for a moment and ask yourself, am I operating in a certain way because people are looking at me? Or is this genuinely who I am at my core? If it's not genuinely who you are at your core, then maybe you want to consider what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, there are circumstances where we have to operate in a certain way because in society there are rules, standards, etc., right? But we kind of want to ask ourselves, who do we really want to be? You know, part of us might want to be an artist, and we've tucked that deep down inside because the world told us we need to be an accountant or a banker or whatever it may be. And it's important. You have to get up every day and you have to pay your bills, right? That's going to be an important part of life. But if you can get back to that part of you that maybe got snuffed out a long time ago because people told you you had to be a certain thing, you might find yourself more at peace with the world. I see a lot out here right now that's going on in terms of people needing to be validated by the world. And it's a huge thing, especially with the internet, the advent of the internet and the comment section and things like that. A big problem is that we want the rest of the world to validate us and see us the way that we see ourselves, right? But I would say that the big problem with the world seeing us the way that we see ourselves is that we don't actually see ourselves the way that we truly need to see ourselves, because we've not done an examination of who we truly are at our core. We haven't come to terms with our fears. We haven't come to terms with the things that trigger us. We haven't come to terms with the things that have created long-lasting effects on us from our childhood. We haven't come to terms with all of these things, but we want the world to see the persona that we've created because that's the way that we want the world to see us. I think a better goal for us should be that we see ourselves the way that we truly are so that we can stop worrying about how the world sees us in the first place. We tend to lean into things that either validate our ideas about life or either invalidate our ideas about life. And what I mean by that is that if something makes us feel bad, we identify with it right away and we strap it to our identity. We take other people's words and we make them into something that we hold personally because we haven't dealt with the things inside of us. Everything that somebody says shouldn't trigger you. And if it does, it's a reason for that. If you're triggered by something that somebody else says or does or thinks, you have to go and ask yourself, what is it inside of me, deep down, past all of the junk, the minutia, all of that, what is it inside of me that's triggered by something that somebody else has to say? I've seen people be triggered by things that aren't even directly related to them or talking about them. If they disagree with it for some reason, we're triggered. I think another reason for that is that we're letting a lot of information into our area and our space. And not a lot of it is good for our psyche. So we're being bombarded with information 24/7, 365. And it's causing for us to have a crisis of identity and a psychological break sometimes, where we're looking at people who are mentally unhealthy. We probably have the most mentally unhealthy population of any other country at any time right now. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're strapped in to social media, taking on everybody's ideas of what the world should be and looking at our lives through the lens of what their lives look like. And I think that's a big problem. I would employ people to turn their phones off and get off the internet and get in a quiet space, if nothing else, for a short period of time of your day, so that you can come back to being who you really are. That's one of the things that I had to do. I actually started doing that last month. I was able to sit my phone down for initially 30 minutes a day. When I would wake up in the morning, I would meditate. And I have to be on my phone for business, so it's really hard to do. But I was able to get off of my phone for at least 30 minutes a day and start my day off with meditation, reflection on the day before, reflection on the things that needed to be done, prioritizing. What I found was that my nervous system calmed down. Well, I would wake up, my wife would say, "Well, you wake up and you jump out of the bed like a man on fire." I actually started to slow down and I started to contemplate what it was that I was doing. I started to lay there and actually reflect on the things that I was thankful for. And when I tell you my nervous system calmed down, I came back to center inside of myself and I was able to float through life a lot more easier. And I've been able to float through life a lot more easier as a result of realizing that, hey, unplug from society, unplug from all the information that you're being exposed to, all of the comments, all of the things that have an influence on how you look at the world. Come back to yourself, because inside of you is where you need to be focused. A key important thing, and the reality of the matter is that you can't change the world. The world is not going to change because you're upset at it. It's not going to change. The only thing that you can do is change how you respond to the world. And I think that starts with realizing who you really are, realizing what your triggers are, realizing what are the things that motivate you and move you in a certain direction. If they're not feeding your soul, then you might want to reconsider those things. But all of the things that you're looking for outside of you are not going to come because you hang on to them with an angry hand. You're holding on to relationships. You're holding on to all of these things that are outside of you with an angry hand, hoping to never have to let them go, because if you let them go, they may never come back to you. And the only thing that you can hang on to is the person inside of you that's at peace. We're going to be talking more about things like this. We're going to be talking about, we did previously in the last video, fear. I have a lot more subject matters that have to do with how you can adjust your mind state so that you can have a more peaceful, once again, I say peaceful experience here on earth, because peace comes from inside of you. You're not going to find it on the outside. One of the big reasons I started doing these videos was that my brother died back in April. And the difference between me and my brother, we had a year difference in age. But one of the biggest differences that me and my brother had in life was that we looked at the world through a different lens. I looked at the world with a little bit more of a peaceful heart than he did. And he died as a result, I believe, of the stress and the worry and the anxiety he had over things that he could not control. And so this was a huge motivating factor in me starting to make the content. I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go with my YouTube channel. And the voice finally came to me and said, you need to do content on taking care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, I mean taking care of your mind state, because it's important. It's something that we lack in the Black community that I believe is a huge issue that gets little to no attention. Now, we will talk in terms about how to take care of your physical body, because your body and mind are one and the same. You know, when you learn to take care of your body, your mind follows, and vice versa. So we will talk some about that, about getting in shape. Once you start to get yourself into some kind of decent shape, you're going to realize how many things you need to focus on in your body that you thought was just normal things, right? We think that we get older and normally things just happen because we're older. It's actually because we don't use them anymore. We don't run anymore. We don't eat right. We don't exercise. We live a sedentary lifestyle. And then we think that we're just getting older and our body is falling apart, but that's not true. So we'll build more later on in the future on how you should treat your body in order for your mind to go in a certain direction as well. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the video. Please hit that like button, subscribe. It's your boy T-Rob with the Unapologetic Perspective. We're going to be putting out more videos every week as we go along, and the content will be getting better. We're building from the ground up. We're doing these things freestyle, you know, but I'm enjoying the process because this is a passion project. Shout out to my producer, CP. I appreciate him once again. I think I say this in every video, is that I appreciate him for giving me the push that I needed to do the next thing. You know, he told me, don't worry about getting it perfect. Just put it out there and let it build. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And since then, I've actually had other messages from other places in my life saying the exact same thing, that you'll never get this thing done if you sit and wait for it to be perfect. That's actually a trauma response in your brain saying that everything needs to be perfect before you put it out. So if you're planning on doing something, I'm gonna give you this advice, and I don't like giving a lot of advice, but if you're planning on doing something, don't worry about getting it perfect. Just put it out there. Let the world respond however they're gonna respond. Put it out there. Enjoy the process, because look, the destination is gonna come. You'll look up 2 years from now and you'll be like, wow, we came this far. But what I've found in my life is that the process has been like the biggest part for me, actually enjoying what I do. The destination is not that important. When you get there, you realize it isn't. So, like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys. See you on the next video.